on. Members' Order of the Day number 2.
Interrupted debates on first reading Financial Assistance for Live Organ Donors Bill.
When the House was last considering this bill, Simon O'Connor had the floor and has 4 minutes and 50 seconds remaining to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to say the first 10 seconds of my speech I think was one of the highlights of my career. I thought it was going to be quite an oration. It turned into a peroration, but I'm pleased to be able to take what is the remaining 4 minutes and 50 seconds to support this bill, and very pleased to have in the House Chris Bishop, who is the member supporting this bill. I think it's important to acknowledge the work and the leadership which he is showing here today around what's officially titled the Financial Assistance for Live Organ Donors Bill, here in its first reading. I've often said in the House when it is Members' Day, it's a rare privilege for many members of Parliament to actually have a bill put in the ballot and then to have it drawn out, and for a first-term MP to have this opportunity is an important one. And I think importantly, Mr. Speaker, it's a bill of import in itself. That's not to take away from other bills, but we are talking about something rather important here. For myself, I know, very early on in my, I suppose, political career or interests was working with Dr. Jackie Blue and supporting her in Mount Roskill. And one of the early visitors to her office was Andrew Tukey, who's a well-known advocate around organ donation. And he made quite an eloquent series of, I suppose, assertions and thoughts to Jackie, and I was quite taken by that. It's been an area that I've been interested in myself over the years, partly because of that, but also because of different friends who I have known and worked with who have gone particularly through liver transplants, and it's been quite life transformative. It would be remiss, therefore, of me, Mr. Speaker, not to mention Oliver Ibbotson, who's a New Zealander, but currently in Taiwan. He himself had a liver transplant, and I'm sure would be very keen on this bill. Mr. Speaker, it's coming to the House Select Committee. I think that's actually an appropriate place for it to come. I know some questions have been raised about why this is not, say, within the Social Services Committee, because the bill itself is quite particular. It's ultimately asking around, that financial assistance be appropriately given. I won't go into all the details. There are many other speakers after me. But long and the short, if at the moment you are a live organ donor, you don't get the full recompense that you might in other circumstances. And I think the beauty of this bill that Mr. Bishop's put forward is it provides some symmetry between the altruistic act of organ donation with other forms of care, and therefore I think it's appropriate that the Health Select Committee takes it on board. I imagine that we will be hearing from the likes of the Ministry of Social Development, who facilitate these payments, to understand what is going to happen and the repercussions, but I think it's important that this bill be discussed in the wider health context. I think for listeners or viewers, it's important to get a very quick distinction between live organ donorship and that which is not live organ donorship. This is where effectively rational adults are able to make a choice and a decision and are prepared for various reasons to give organ donation. As someone who's studied quite a bit of ethics over the years, there are a few ethical issues in this space. Non-live organ donation raises a whole lot of issues, not any that necessarily block it, but I think it's important to acknowledge in the House that there are more divergent views in that space. But I certainly, as the chair of the committee, would welcome not only strong positive feedback on this bill and any suggestions of change to come to the committee, but also some of those wider discussions that could be had, because I would like to think, Mr. Speaker, that this bill is the beginning of a conversation. I think it rightly provides a mechanism, as the title suggests, for proper and full recompense, or sorry, I should correct myself there. It is not full. I don't think one can ever fully compensate someone around an act like this, but a more appropriate financial package and assistance to someone who has made this choice. But again, I think we cannot have that financial conversation, Mr. Speaker, without touching at least on some of the wider issues of organ donation in this country. It is one of the issues that we've had, is that New Zealand has a rather low organ donation approach. It's what the likes of Andrew, Oliver and others have spoken about in the past. And I think it'll be quite important for the Health Select Committee to hear that again. This is not to get too long or too wide, but I think understanding some of the wider issues may help us moving forward.
I thank the member, his time has expired. I just want to inform the House that I incorrectly announced the result of the last vote. The numbers were in fact 99 in favour and 21 opposed. Kevin Haig.
It's a shame, Mr. Speaker. I thought maybe you were going to announce we'd taken it out after all. But, Mr. Speaker, I rise with